What's up everybody, this is Meher, and in this video we are going to learn about the fourth way of invoking functions in JavaScript, and that is using the new keyword. So you must be thinking right now that new keyword somehow is related with constructor calls. It belongs in the classes topic of JavaScript. So what is it doing with related to function invocation? So let me tell you, new keyword's primary job is to first invoke the function, and then along with invoking the function, it does four unique things. So the first thing which new keyword does is that it creates an empty object. And secondly, what it does is it connects this new empty object which it just created to another object. So now this connection and this another object is a topic which we should be covering in a prototype video, because this connection is kind of a lengthier aspect to explain in this video. So let's talk about the third part. So thirdly, what it does is it makes this keyword in that particular function point to the empty object which was created in the step 1. And fourthly, what it does is if you are not explicitly returning an object in that function, then the new keyword assumes that you meant to return this keyword. So yes, those were the four things that new keyword does, and now it's time to dive into some code and let's look at how this works with respect to new keyword. Okay, so we are in the console right now. So let's begin by creating a simple function. Let's use that same name. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the new keyword, and we are going to hit this function and see what happens. Okay, so let's look at what just happened. So what we did is we used the new keyword to invoke the function, and because new keyword does a bunch of other stuff as well, but it invokes the function nevertheless, and it did so, and what we got back from the function is undefined. And of course it's going to be undefined because we still don't know what this is, or do we? We know that this is going to be an empty object, and we are going to check that, and because of that same reason it could not find first name on this. So let's do one more thing. Let's, instead of, okay, nice, I like auto suggestions. So let's do this, and this time let me copy this part again, and my first name is equal to get name. Okay, so this was the step 1 where it creates the empty object. So what was the step 2? Step 2 was it links or it connects your empty object to another object. We are going to keep that aside for now because that belongs in the prototype video, and we are going to go to the step 3 which new keyword does. And the step 3 which new keyword does is basically it makes this keyword point to that empty object. So let's access that empty object by using this keyword. So let's say I say this dot first name is equal to, let me use simply name, okay? And we will pass the name as an argument, and once we give this data to getName function, and then what happens is this is going to point to that empty object which it creates. Then it creates a property called as first name on that empty object, and then it assigns the value of name which we will tell getName. And then finally what we are going to do is we are going to say log it to the console this dot first name. So let's see what happens, and let me just copy this line again and do this, and this time it wants name to be passed as an argument. So now this kind of looks similar to how you do your constructor calls, but we'll cover that in some other aspect. But this is a simple aspect which we are trying to cover. Okay, so now we could see that it was able to get us some value back, and this is what this points to. And if you see that now, we used new keyword to invoke a function, and we made this value point to an empty object which we actually created right here. And we added a property on this, and we said, okay, this dot first name is equal to name, and that is what we are going to print. And if we let's say do my first name, let's see what is my first name. So my first name basically gets you this object back, and you can see that this object has first name with a value of Meher in it. And you can see something interesting here. It does not print out an empty object. It has this interesting aspect to it, which we are going to cover in our classes and prototype section of this topic, but just to observe that. And the fourth thing which we talked about new keyword was that if you do not write a return statement in the function which you're using new keyword to invoke, then it will by default return you this keyword or whatever this is pointing to. So let's try to see if we can return something else from this function. So for that, let's clear the screen. How do we do it? It's Control L. And once we do that, let's get that same function back to us, and let me add a new line. And what we are going to do here instead is, so now we saw that, like, if we do not return anything explicitly, then it obviously was returning us the same object, but we could do something else like this, last name, and then you can say like that. And okay, this is redundant. Okay, now it looks good. So we are going to pass some argument. We have seen this already earlier, so let's skip this. Okay, so now you notice that it obviously got us meher back. So you must be thinking, where is this last name going to get printed on the screen? It will get printed if I say my first name. And if you notice from the previous time, do we have the previous time? No. Okay, let's then copy this. Let's copy this. Let's do retrospective. Let's not return anything. Let's do this again, and let's do my first name again. Okay, so here's what I did. Basically, in this function over here, this function, I am returning a new object, which is not what this is pointing to, because this points to an empty object in this function. And if you look here, we are not returning anything. And in that case, what the new keyword does is it returns the value of this, which in this case points to an empty object. So what we get back when we print my first name is that we get this object back from the function which we explicitly returned. And in this case, if you see here, which is my first name, over here you're getting a different object getting returned, which is the object which was created right here. So it returns this object in this case, where we are not explicitly returning anything, and in this case it returns the object. And one more thing you will notice, that this object and this object, they kind of look different, and that's a food for thought for us in the next video. And that is it about how your new keyword defines some different value for this keyword. And this was the fourth way of invoking your function. And lastly, if you really like this video, then you can support the channel by subscribing to it. And most importantly, leave a feedback in the comment section and let me know what can I cover next for you. And I'll be really happy to do that. And I'll see you in the next video.